Alina Davis drove down the narrow country road just after sunset. She had left her city life behind for a quiet retreat at her family's old farmhouse. The sky was dark and heavy with clouds. Light drizzle began to fall, turning the windshield into a swirl of water drops. She slowed the car, breathing in the scent of wet grass and earth. Her mind wandered to the board meeting she had left behind. The endless calls, the sleepless nights spent worrying about quarterly earnings. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight she would rest. Suddenly, the engine coughed and died. The car sputtered, then stopped altogether. Alina pressed the accelerator again, but the engine stayed silent. Her heart tightened. She turned on her hazard lights and stepped out into the damp air. The rain fell more steadily now, soaking the hem of her coat. She lifted her phone, but there was no signal. The nearest town was miles away, and the next bus would not come until early morning. She leaned against the cold metal of her car door, shivering. Panic fluttered in her chest. She imagined being trapped here all night. Maybe a wild animal would wander by, maybe a stranger with bad intentions. She wished she had planned better. She chastised herself for trusting her GPS and speeding when she should have taken the main highway. But the rain blurred her thoughts. Just then, headlights appeared behind her. A small pickup truck rolled to a stop a few feet away. A man stepped out. He wore a faded ball cap and a thick jacket that had seen better days. Mud stained his boots. Alina watched him approach under the glow of her hazard lights. He carried a toolbox in one hand and offered a warm smile. "Car trouble?" he asked in a gentle voice. Alina nodded, grateful and embarrassed. "I'm Marcus Thompson," he said, holding out a hand. His grip was firm and kind. She introduced herself. "Alina Davis." "Yes, it stalled and wouldn't start again." He nodded and crouched beside the car, shining a small lamp at the engine. As Marcus worked, Alina watched him closely. He moved with confidence and ease, as though he did this every day. He lifted a hose, tightened a clamp, and replaced a small part with one from his toolbox. He spoke softly to her, explaining each step in simple words. Alina felt her anxiety ease. She loved details and knew how machines worked. She asked a few questions, and he answered each with patience. Within 20 minutes, Marcus wiped his hands on an old rag and stood. He turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. Relief flooded Alina. She slipped into the driver's seat and tested the gas pedal. The car moved forward smoothly. "Thank you so much," she said, voice thick with gratitude. She held out a crisp bill, but he shook his head. "No charge," he said, "just glad to help." The rain had eased to a gentle patter now. Alina glanced at her phone again. Still no signal. "What?" she sighed. "I hate to impose, but I have no way to get home tonight," she admitted. "The next bus is hours away, and I can't drive until morning." Marcus studied her face. He saw the exhaustion and the lone traveler lost in the dark. He glanced at his truck and then back at her. "I have a spare room at my place," he offered quietly. "It's not fancy, but it's warm and dry." Alina hesitated. She was a powerful CEO, used to control and self-reliance. Accepting help from a stranger felt strange. But the warmth in Marcus's eyes, the steady calm in his voice, made her trust him. She nodded. "All right. Thank you." He smiled and guided her to his truck. They drove slowly toward his home, a modest house on a quiet lane lined with tall pines. The rain left the road glistening under the headlights. Inside the cab, neither spoke much. The hum of the engine and the soft hiss of rain were enough. When they arrived, Marcus unlocked the door and flicked on a single lamp. The living room was cozy, filled with warm colors and simple furniture. A small fire crackled in the fireplace. Alina's cheeks warmed as she stepped inside. She felt safe in this unexpected refuge. Marcus led her to a small guest room down the hall. The bed was made with soft blankets and plump pillows. Sunlight from the windows would stream in by morning. He handed her a towel and pointed toward the bathroom. "Feel free to use whatever you need," he said. After a hot shower, Alina wrapped herself in a towel and went back to the living room. Marcus had a kettle on the stove. and the rich smell of tea filled the air. He handed her a steaming mug. The warmth seeped into her hands and chest. They sat by the fire, sipping tea in comfortable silence. Alina studied Marcus's face in the flickering light. Wow. He looked peaceful here, far from any busy city or corporate boardroom. She asked about his life, and he told her about growing up in this town, about learning to fix cars from his grandfather's old garage. He spoke of days spent racing go-karts, of school friends who moved away, and of how he built this house. With his own hands, Alina shared some of her own story. She told him about climbing the corporate ladder, about nights spent drafting plans and weekends lost to work. She admitted to him how lonely success could feel. Marcus listened without judgment, nodding and offering a quiet word of comfort now and then. Night deepened outside. The fire burned low. Alina felt a calm she had not felt in years. She thanked Marcus again for his kindness, shrugged, saying it was nothing. But she saw in his eyes that he cared. When Alina finally went to the guest room, she lay on the soft mattress and stared at the ceiling. Her mind replayed the evening's events. A stranger had stopped to help. A stranger had given her shelter. She felt a stirring of something new, hope, perhaps, or possibility. Across the hall, Marcus sat in his favorite chair. He looked up at the ceiling too, thinking about Elena's life. He wondered if a woman of her world could ever truly understand someone like him. He thought of her gentle questions, her honest smile. He realized that she had changed something inside him too. In the quiet of that house, two lives touched in a way that neither expected. Outside, the rain had stopped. The night was still. And inside, something had begun. Alina woke before dawn, the soft glow of early light slipping through the curtains. She lay still for a moment, listening to the gentle ticking of the clock on the bedside table. The house was quiet except for the distant sound of birds stirring. Outside, she felt surprisingly rested after the long drive and the unexpected kindness of Marcus. Rolling onto her side, she let her thoughts drift back to the night before the warmth of the fire. The taste of tea and the way Marcus's voice sounded calm and steady when he spoke about his life. She slipped from the bed, careful not to wake him, and padded down the hallway in her slippers. The wooden floor was cool under her feet. At the end of the hall, she stopped outside the kitchen door and peeked in. Marcus stood at the counter, his back to her, pouring coffee into two thick mugs. Now steam curled up and filled the room with a rich scent. He must have woken earlier to start breakfast. She smiled softly at his thoughtfulness. Marcus turned as the chair creaked behind him. He saw Alina standing in the doorway and held up a mug. "Good morning," he said gently. His smile was warm, and for a moment Alina felt the tension of her boardroom life slip away. She took the mug from him and breathed in the aroma. The coffee was strong and smooth. "Thank you," she said, and lifted the mug to her lips. The warmth spread through her hands and into her chest. "You didn't have to make breakfast this early." He shrugged and brushed a hand through his hair. "You look tired. I thought you might like something hot before the sun came up." He gestured toward the table where he had placed a simple spread: fresh eggs, toast, and some sliced fruit. Everything smelled fresh and inviting. Alina sat, folding her hands around the mug. "It's kind of you." She studied the plain wooden table and the mismatched chairs. Everything here felt real and honest. No fancy china or silverware, just what was needed, done well. "I've been living in a high-rise downtown," she said, surrounded by glass and steel. "I forgot how good fresh air and simple meals can feel." He poured coffee into his own mug and joined her at the table. For a moment they sat in companionable silence, sipping coffee. Outside, the sun began to rise behind the pine trees, painting the sky in pale gold and lavender. A light breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the smell of dew and pine needles. Marcus broke the silence. "So, what brings you out here? I know you said you were visiting family, but you seem to work very hard." He lifted a piece of toast and took a small bite. Alina smiled, rolling the words around in her mind. She was used to sharing little of herself. Board meetings and press releases required a polished version of her life. But here, in this simple kitchen, she felt safe to speak honestly. She set down her mug and looked into his kind eyes. I'm the CEO of a tech company, she began. It grew faster than I expected. At first, I was thrilled, new projects, big goals, big rewards. But then it became too much. Endless calls, emails at midnight, pressure to hit targets. I realized I needed to step back before I burned out. Marcus nodded. I get that. I used to work for a dealership in the city. The hours were long. The customer's impatient. I left that to open my own garage here. It's quieter, slower, but it feels right. He paused, glancing at her. Did you tell anyone at work you needed a break? Lena shook her head. No, I thought I could handle it. I'm supposed to be strong. She took a sip of coffee. But strength doesn't mean you can't be tired. Her voice grew soft. I felt like I was losing myself. He reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. His skin was warm, and she felt a spark of something she did not expect. You're not alone, he said simply. She looked at his hand on hers, then up at his face. Thank you for saying that. She took her hand back and wrapped both around her mug again. I'm not used to letting people in. It's easier to keep pushing. Marcus leaned back. It's hard to trust. But sometimes kindness from a stranger is the start of something good. She nodded, feeling both shy and bold. Tell me more about your garage, she said. How did you learn to fix cars? He leaned forward, eyes bright with memory. My grandfather taught me. His garage was his life. I used to hang around as a kid, handing him tools, cleaning up. One day he let me try tightening a bolt. After that, I was hooked. I saved up my pocket money for tools. In college, I worked part-time in a body shop. When I graduated, I built this place with my own hands. It's small, but every bit is mine. Alina listened, imagining a young boy watching his grandfather turn a wrench, feeling proud when he helped. She thought of her own childhood, her father's office, her mother's quiet worry that she worked too hard even as a schoolgirl. She realized how different their lives were, and yet how similar the drive to succeed felt. I admire that, she said. Building something real with your hands? I build software, and sometimes it feels less real. He smiled, his eyes kind. But it's real for someone who uses it. Everything we make has value. He stood and reached for a basket of fruit. Here, have some strawberries. They're fresh from the farmer's market in town. She took a strawberry and bit into it. Sweet juice ran down her chin, and she laughed softly. Delicious, she said. I haven't tasted fruit like this in years. They ate together, talking about small things, favorite books, childhood, games, the best routes for scenic drives. The conversation was easy, unhurried. Lena felt as though she had stepped out of her own busy life and into a place where time moved at the right speed. After breakfast, Marcus cleared the table while Alina washed the dishes. They worked side by side, the simple chores feeling like a shared ritual. When they finished, he put his hand on her arm. I have to head to the garage soon, he said. Would you like to come with me? I could show you around. She smiled. I'd like that. She followed him outside into the morning light. The air was crisp, and the dew sparkled on the grass. His garage was a short walk down a gravel drive. Lena noticed how natural he looked in this place. Jeans and work boots, grease on his hands that told of honest labor. Inside the garage, tools hung on the walls in neat rows. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. Marcus pushed open the hood of an old truck and explained each part as though they were old friends. Lena asked questions, and he answered with patience and care. She ran her fingers lightly over a smooth engine cover and felt the hum of power beneath her touch. I like how everything here has a purpose, she said. In my world, things change so fast. Software updates, new products, new strategies. It can feel chaotic. He nodded. Here, parts fit together in a way that doesn't lie. You put the right piece in the right place, and it works. If you miss one, you hear it in the engine's cough. He tightened a bolt and tested the part. The engine purred. Simple truth. Lena smiled, feeling a sense of calm she had not known in years. She watched Marcus's work, admiring his skill and focus. She realized she was learning something important about patience, about the value of small moments of care. When the job was done, they stepped outside into the growing warmth of the late morning sun. Alina took a deep breath. "Thank you," she said again, though she felt the words were small compared to what she really wanted to say. Looked at her, his eyes steady. "You're welcome," he paused, then added, "I'm glad you're here." She returned his gaze, her heart lifting. She did not know what would happen next, but in that moment she felt hope. She had found a place where she could breathe, where she could be herself, and she had met someone whose kindness had opened her world in a way she'd never expected. They walked back toward his house, the gravel crunching under their feet. Alina thought of her family's old farmhouse and the board meeting she would have to face on Monday. But for now, she was here with Marcus, and the day was theirs to share. And that was enough. Alina woke to the sound of birds singing outside her window. She stretched and felt a light breeze drift through the open sash. Today felt different. The sky was bright blue, and sunlight danced on the wooden floor. She dressed quietly and walked back to the kitchen, where she found Marcus pouring orange juice into 2 glasses. He turned with a smile when he saw her. "Good morning," he said softly. The light in his eyes made her heart lift. She took a glass and sipped the juice. It was fresh and sweet, like sunshine in a cup. "Good morning," she replied. "Thank you." She set the glass down and looked around. On the counter, he had arranged freshly baked muffins and a bowl of scrambled eggs with herbs from his garden. Everything smelled warm and homey. They ate together in contented silence. Lena felt a calm happiness she had not known in a long time. She realized how much she had missed simple mornings without a buzzing phone or 1,000 tasks waiting. She wondered if she could bring just a little of this peace back to her busy life. After breakfast, Marcus stood and brushed crumbs from his hands. "I thought we could go for a walk by the creek," he suggested. "It's a short hike, and the view is nice this time of year." He handed her a light jacket. "It might be cool." Elena nodded. "I'd like that." She followed him out the door. The air was crisp, and pine needles cushioned their steps along a narrow trail. Sunlight filtered through the branches, making patterns on the ground. A soft breeze rustled the leaves. As they walked, Marcus told her about the creek. "When I was a kid, my grandfather took me fishing here," he said. "He taught me patience. He said a river teaches you to slow down and listen." She listened, picturing a small boy casting a line beside his grandfather. It reminded her of childhood summers at her grandmother's lake house. She had loved the quiet water laps against the dock. She smiled at the memory. They reached a bend where the creek opened into a small pool. Sunlight gleamed on the rippling water. Picked up a smooth stone and skipped it across the surface. Lena tried to, and laughed when her stone sank with a soft plunk. "It takes practice," he said, handing her another stone. "Here, try this one." She took it, and a gentle calm washed over her as she focused on the smooth shape in her hand. She threw it, and this time it skipped twice. She cheered softly, and Marcus clapped. "See?" he said. "You're natural." She grinned, feeling proud in a way she hadn't for a long time. They sat on a fallen log by the water's edge. Marcus pulled sandwiches from his pack and offered one to her. They ate, watching dragonflies skim the water. The world felt quiet and easy. Alina thought about her life in the city. She pictured boardrooms, tall buildings, bright lights. Here, everything was softer. The green of leaves, the brown of earth, the silver of water. She turned to Marcus. "I forgot how peaceful nature could be." He nodded. "We all need reminders. It's easy to lose sight of the simple things." His voice was gentle, but sure. Alina felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that Marcus spoke from experience, not from a book. As they finished lunch, Marcus reached into his pack again and pulled out 2 small notebooks and a pen. "I keep a journal," he explained. "I write about what I see, what I feel. Helps me remember the good moments." Elena's eyes widened. She had not written for herself since college. Now her days were full of emails and reports, not thoughts and dreams. She hesitated, then took the notebook from him. The cover was soft leather, worn at the edges. Inside, pages were blank and inviting. "I've never done this," she said quietly. "Just write whatever comes to mind," he encouraged. "No rules." Lena opened the notebook and wrote her name on the first line. Then she paused. Looked at the creek, at the light dancing on water. She wrote, "Today I feel calm. I feel alive. A stranger showed me kindness, and now I see the world differently." She smiled as she wrote. Words seemed to flow more easily than she expected. She wrote about Marcus's laughter, the taste of his coffee, the feel of cool air on her skin. When she finished, she closed the notebook. Marcus smiled at her. "Thank you." "You for sharing," he said. "I'm glad." They packed up and walked back to his house. Alina felt lighter than she had in years. She realized that her life had become a list of tasks, not a story she was living. Here with Marcus, she found. Moments worth remembering. Back at the house, Marcus invited her to see his workshop. He led her through a door to a room filled with wood and metal. He showed her a project he was building, a small wooden boat he planned to launch on the creek next weekend. He pointed out the curves and joints, explaining why each plank mattered. Alina ran her hand along the smooth wood. She thought of her software designs, lines of code that made things happen on a screen, but left no scent of pine. She turned to him. "This is beautiful." Her voice was soft with awe. He looked at her, and for a moment his eyes held a question. Then he spoke, his voice steady. "It's being made with care. That's what makes it special," Lena thought. About the people who used her company's software. They needed care too, but she often forgot to think of them as people, not numbers. She wondered if she could bring more care into her work, not just focus on profit. Later, they sat on the porch with lemonade. Lena watched the sky turn golden as the sun dipped low. Marcus told her more about his dreams about opening a community center where people could learn trades and art, a place for young and old to share skills. He spoke with passion, and Alina saw his eyes shine. "You should do it," she said. "You have the vision and the skill." He shook his head. "I don't know if I can." His voice was quiet. She leaned forward. "I believe you can. You have a gift for bringing people together. You turn this garage into a home for your work. Imagine what you could do for others." He looked at her thoughtfully. "Really?" "Think so?" She nodded. "Yes." She smiled. "You helped me see things differently. Now let me help you." He reached for her hand. "I'd like that." They sat together as daylight faded into dusk. The air grew cooler, and Marcus brought a blanket for them to share. Lena leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his shoulder. She thought about the journey that had begun when her car broke down. She had found more than shelter she had. Found someone who saw her as a person, not just a CEO, and she had helped someone else see the value in his own dreams. Night fell, and stars appeared above the pines. They spoke softly about hopes and fears, about what tomorrow might bring. Alina realized she no longer felt afraid of stepping into the unknown. With Marcus beside her, she knew she could face anything. In the quiet of that porch, 2 hearts opened to each other, and neither of them would ever be the same again. Alina woke to the soft hum of morning birds and the gentle glow of sunrise through the curtains. She stretched and smiled as she remembered the night before, Marcus offering his dreams, Lena encouraging him, and the feeling of hope that had filled her heart. Today was different. Today she planned to bring Marcus into her world. She dressed in simple but neat clothes, light blouse and dark trousers, and slipped on low-heeled shoes. In the bathroom mirror, she smoothed her hair and took a deep breath. She felt a flutter of excitement and a touch of nerves. Marcus had agreed to visit her office, but she knew the city could overwhelm him. She hoped he would feel welcome downstairs. She found Marcus in the kitchen, leaning over a map of the city she had spread on the table. He was tracing the route to her office with a finger. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm. "I think I have it right." He tapped a spot on the map. This is your building? Lena nodded and poured coffee into 2 mugs. The rich aroma filled the air. Yes, it's a tall glass tower in the middle of downtown. It might look different from this countryside house. She handed him a mug. Ready? Took the coffee and sipped. Ready. His eyes held a mix of curiosity and trust. Elena's heart warmed. She realized how much she cared about his comfort. They set off in her car. Marcus watched the landscape change from soft green fields to busy streets. Elena pointed out landmarks: the river where she liked to jog, the park where she walked her dog, the old theater she visited on weekends. Marcus listened and asked questions, his interest genuine. Lena felt proud to share her city. When they reached downtown, the tall towers seemed to touch the clouds. Cars and buses rushed by, and people hurried along sidewalks. The noise was loud: horns, engines, footsteps. Marcus tensed slightly but held her hand. She guided him to her building's entrance, a wide glass door that slid open automatically. Inside, the lobby glowed with light. Marble floors reflected shining walls. A receptionist smiled at them as they passed. Elena introduced Marcus quietly. He nodded and smiled back, his eyes shining. She led him to the elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. The doors closed with a soft hiss. As the elevator rose, Marcus turned to her. "This is amazing," he said softly. "I've never been in a place like this." Elena smiled, touched by his wonder. The doors opened, and they stepped onto a carpeted hallway. Elena's office was at the end, behind a frosted glass door with her name etched in silver letters. She pushed it open, and they walked into a large room filled with windows that overlooked the city. Desks, computers, and people working filled the space. The air smelled of fresh coffee and paper. Elena led Marcus to a small seating area near her desk. She introduced him to her assistant Claire, who welcomed him with quiet kindness. Marcus nodded and offered a polite smile. He stood tall and calm, even in this new world. Soon, people stopped by to greet Elena. She introduced Marcus as a friend and mechanic from the countryside. Colleagues shook his hand and asked where he was from. Marcus told them briefly about his garage and how he helped Elena's car. His voice was steady and honest. Elena watched their faces light up at his stories. His warmth and simple wisdom shone through. After a while, Elena guided Marcus to a meeting room where her leadership team gathered for a quick strategy session. She invited him to sit in a visitor's chair. The team members were a mix of ages and backgrounds. Elena explained that Marcus had a special talent for fixing problems, literally and figuratively, and she valued his insight. They discussed a new project, improving customer support software. Elena asked Marcus what he thought. He listened carefully, then spoke in clear, simple terms. He suggested focusing on ease of use, making sure people could find help quickly without confusion. He shared how, in his garage, customers liked signs that showed where to wait and simple instructions on what to expect. He said that clear steps made people feel calm. The team listened and nodded. They asked more questions, and Marcus answered with confidence. Lena felt a swell of pride. She realized that his real-world experience brought a fresh perspective. He reminded them that behind every piece of technology was a person who needed support, not just a ticket number. After the meeting, the team thanked Marcus. One of her managers said, "You have a gift for making things clear. We could learn a lot from you." Marcus smiled shyly and waved a hand. Elena squeezed his arm under the table and mouthed, "Thank you." They left the meeting room and walked back to her office. Marcus looked excited. "They really listened," he said. "I didn't know my ideas mattered in a place like this." Elena smiled. "Your ideas matter everywhere," she said softly. "I'm proud of you." She showed him more of the office or desk where she sketched designs. The whiteboard covered in colorful notes. At the break room where people gathered for snacks and coffee, Marcus made thoughtful comments and asked gentle questions. He seemed genuinely interested, not overwhelmed. Elena realized he adapted quickly. to new situations when he felt respected. At lunchtime, Alina invited Marcus to join her and Claire in the company cafeteria. The cafeteria was large, with bright lights and rows of food stations. Marcus looked around, taking it all in. Alina chose fresh salad and grilled chicken. Marcus opted for soup and bread. They sat at a table, and Claire joined them. Conversation flowed as Alina talked about her childhood. Claire shared stories about her pet cat, and Marcus described his garage's first clients. People passed by and waved. Marcus waved back. Alina noticed how well he fit in, not because he changed, but because her colleagues saw his kindness and honesty. She felt happy to show her world to someone she cared about. After lunch, they walked back to her office. Marcus looked thoughtful. "I learned a lot today," he said. "Your world is busy, but also full of ideas and teamwork. I like that part." Alina nodded. "I want you to know this world too," she said. "I want us to share both our lives, not just one or the other." She took his hand. "I've learned so much from you about patience, about seeing people as people." He smiled, his eyes warm. "And I've learned from you too," he said. "About big ideas and leadership. You inspire me." She led him to the window and they looked out at the city skyline. Tall buildings rose like silver trees, and rivers of cars moved below like streams of light. Alina felt a deep calm in that moment, standing beside Marcus. She thought of how their worlds had met, the quiet countryside and the bustling city, a mechanic's simple wisdom and a CEO's bold vision. Alina turned to him. "Would you like to work with us on this project, even as a consultant? Your voice matters." Her heart pounded with hope and a little fear. Marcus looked surprised and then touched. He squeezed her hand. "I'd be honored," he said softly. They shared a warm smile. In that glass office high above the city, two people from different lives found common ground. Alina knew that this moment marked the start of something new: partnership in love and in work. And as they stood together, she felt stronger, knowing they could face the future side by side. The morning sun shone gently through the curtains as Alina stirred awake. She lay still for a moment, recalling the promise she and Marcus had made the night before. Today was the day they would face the world together. She dressed in a soft sweater and jeans, careful to choose clothes that felt like her, but also honored the simple life Marcus loved. In the kitchen, she found him humming by the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced ease. The smell of warm batter and fresh fruit filled the air. Alina poured coffee into 2 mugs and set them on the small table. Marcus looked up and smiled when she joined him, held out a plate piled with golden pancakes. "Good morning," he said. Alina sat and accepted the plate gratefully. "Good morning," she replied, taking a bite. The pancake was sweet and tender, just like the mornings they had shared. They talked about the day's plan. Alina would introduce Marcus to her family at the old farmhouse. Marcus would show Alina the final touches on his community center design. They drove out together in Alina's car, fields rolling past. In soft green waves, at her family's farmhouse, her mother and younger brother stood in the driveway waiting. Alina's heart raced with a mix of excitement and nerves. She parked and stepped out, taking Marcus's hand. Her mother held back at first, studying Marcus with gentle curiosity. Marcus smiled and offered a polite nod. He spoke softly, thanking her for welcoming him. Alina watched her mother's face soften as she saw the warmth in Marcus's eyes. Inside, her mother brewed fresh lemonade while her brother showed Marcus the old barn where he kept farm equipment. They spoke of simple things: how crops were growing, how the old oak tree had weathered the spring storms. Marcus listened with respect and genuine interest. He asked her brother about his plans for summer and offered a thoughtful suggestion. About repairing a squeaky hinge? Her brother laughed and welcomed his help. Alina felt relief that her family saw in Marcus what she already knew: a kind heart and a steady hand. That afternoon, they traveled into town to visit the site where Marcus planned his community center. Alina had seen the blueprints, but seeing the empty lot made her understand how much work lay ahead. Marcus pointed out where the workshop would stand, where the classrooms would be. and where a small garden could grow herbs for cooking classes. He spoke with such passion that Alina felt her chest swell with pride. She offered to help by connecting him with people at her company who could advise on fundraising and design. They spent hours walking the grounds, imagining walls rising, windows letting in light, and laughter filling the halls. As the sun dipped low, they sat on the back of Marcus's old truck, sharing sandwiches and water. They watched the sky turn pink and orange. Marcus turned to Alina and said, "I can't believe how far we've come." Alina smiled and squeezed his hand. "Together," she said. "We're better together." The next week, back in the city, Alina introduced Marcus at a company gathering. She stood before her team and spoke of the project, a place where people could learn trades, share ideas, and grow together. She invited Marcus to join her on stage. He stepped forward in his work boots and jeans, humble but proud. He spoke about his dream and thanked everyone for their support. The room was silent at first, then filled with applause. Alina beamed. She saw in Marcus's eyes the same wonder she felt when she first saw her own dream come true. Over the following months, Marcus balanced his time between the garage, the community center site, and Alina's company. He met with architects and volunteers, wrote notes in his leather journal, and hosted small fundraisers. Alina joined him at weekend events, helping to sell refreshments, speaking about the importance of community. They grew closer with each shared task. Late nights found them working by lantern light, laughing over spilled paint or crooked signs. Their love grew in the cracks between work and dream, in moments both small and grand. Of course, not everyone understood. Some colleagues whispered that Alina was distracted, that a bright CEO needed to focus on the bottom line, not a country mechanic's passion project. Some neighbors wondered why Marcus spent time in a glass tower instead of beneath the hood of a car, but Alina and Marcus paid little mind. They had each other's back. When doubts crept in, they reminded one another of the first night by the roadside. When kindness had sown the seed of everything that followed, the grand opening of the community center arrived on a crisp autumn morning. A long ribbon stretched across the front door. Neighbors, company employees, and local officials gathered with cheering. Alina stood by Marcus, her hand on his arm. Her mother and brother stood nearby, smiling proudly. A local news reporter asked questions, and Marcus answered with confidence. Alina spoke of how love and compassion had built bridges between worlds. Then Marcus cut the ribbon, and the doors swung open to applause. Inside, light streamed through tall windows onto polished floors. Tables held tools, books, and art supplies. A little girl touched a model car in the workshop corner, and an elderly man studied blueprints at a drafting table. Alina's eyes filled with tears of joy. She turned to Marcus, who looked at her. With shining eyes, he pulled her into an embrace. "We did it," he said softly. "We built it together." She nodded, her heart full. "Yes," she whispered. "Together." That evening, they sat on the porch of Alina's family farmhouse, wrapped in blankets and sipping hot cider. The stars shone brightly above. Marcus pointed out constellations, and Alina listened, feeling the vastness of the sky and the closeness of the man beside her. They spoke of the future plans to expand the center, books they wanted to read, journeys they dreamed of taking. Neither was more powerful or more humble than the other. They were partners in every sense in the quiet of that porch. They knew their love would face more challenges, long days, tough decisions, and moments of doubt. But they also knew they would face them side by side. They remembered the night a broken car brought them together, and how that moment of kindness had turned into a lifetime of shared dreams. As the fireflies danced in the field below, Alina and Marcus leaned into each other, ready for whatever came next, confident that their story, born of simple compassion, would continue to grow in ways they had never imagined.